Imagine this. You're walking away from a conversation with her, not trying too hard, not chasing, just calm, composed, collected. But something in her eyes tells you she's still there with you, mentally stuck on one thing you said. It echoes in her mind. It lingers like a scent she can't shake. And while you're out doing your thing, living your life like a man who doesn't need to chase, she's obsessing, checking her phone, replaying that moment, replaying your voice. That's not a fantasy. That's the power of saying the right words with the right intention and letting the silence do the rest. What if I told you that women don't fall for men who talk a lot? They fall for men who say just enough to make their minds do the chasing? Most guys talk to impress. They ramble. They try to be funny, clever, agreeable. But the man who understands the power of psychological suggestion, the man who knows how to plant an idea without forcing it, he becomes unforgettable. That's what this video is about. And if you stay, I'll show you not just what to say, but how to say it. So she won't stop thinking about you even when she's trying to. Now, I'm not going to give you some cringy pickup lines or fake confidence tricks. This is about tapping into something deeper, something psychological. It's about embedding yourself in her subconscious, using principles from behavioral psychology, emotional anchoring, and even methods drawn from seduction experts like Ross Jeffries, Robert Greene, and the psychological frames Neil Strauss talked about in The Game. We're going to dissect what actually makes words stick in a woman's mind. You'll understand why some phrases trigger emotional memory, why certain emotional spikes bind a woman to your presence, and how you can engineer that without sounding scripted, fake, or needy. The first thing you need to understand is that attraction is not logical. It's emotional. It's unconscious. It's symbolic. When you say something that pierces through her surface mind and goes straight to her emotional core, she won't just like you, she'll feel you. And feelings are what create obsession. If a woman feels something unique when she's around you, and no other man makes her feel that way, she will keep coming back to that emotion, and by extension, to you. So the first psychological frame we'll explore is this. Don't try to convince her of your value. Speak in a way that presupposes your value. That's called embedded commands, and it's a linguistic trick that Ross Jeffries used to hypnotize attraction into women's minds. Now, I'm not saying you need to use hypnosis, but understand this. If you speak as if she already sees you as valuable, her mind will look for reasons to justify that belief. That's how the female mind works. It rationalizes what it feels. So if you can create a feeling first, the logic will come later. That's how emotional anchoring works. Let me give you a subtle phrase that does this without being obvious. Imagine you're having a conversation and you drop this line. You know what I find rare? A woman who knows how to connect without forcing anything. It's like everything just flows, and it's not common. Then you change the subject. What did you just do? You planted a psychological seed. You've subtly implied that she might be that rare woman. You didn't say it directly, and that's the magic. Now, if she's even slightly attracted to you, she'll want to live up to that image. She'll want to be that woman for you, and she'll replay that phrase in her mind to convince herself that there's something special between you two, even if there isn't yet. This is what I call seductive ambiguity. You never frame the compliment directly. You say something that sounds like a general thought, but the context makes it personal. It leaves space for her to fill in the blanks. And here's the psychological truth. When a woman fills in the blanks herself, she becomes emotionally invested. It's like letting her write part of the story in her own mind. And that's way more powerful than any direct compliment could ever be. But let's go deeper. Let's talk about how emotional tension makes your words more memorable. If you've ever read Robert Greene's The Art of Seduction, you'll notice one recurring pattern. Seducers create emotional contrasts. They don't keep the energy flat. They shift between presence and absence, mystery and clarity, warmth and detachment. And that creates emotional spikes. These spikes are how memories get locked into the brain. It's no different from how we remember the lyrics to a song, because they're attached to a powerful moment. If you say something in a moment of emotional intensity, during laughter, during eye contact, during stillness, that phrase can hook itself into her psyche. And the more unique and emotionally charged the experience, the more that phrase becomes yours. Here's another example of a phrase that sticks because it creates mystery and evokes curiosity. There's something different about you. I'm not even sure what it is yet, and I don't want to name it too fast. I just know it's there. That sentence does three things at once. First, it flatters her without defining her, which keeps her thinking. Second, it places you as a man of depth, someone who notices nuance. And third, it creates a subtle challenge, because now she wants to prove you right. That one line can lead her to replay the moment over and over again, trying to figure out what exactly you saw in her. That loop, that mental loop, is where the obsession begins. And here's something most men overlook. It's not the exact words that matter most. It's how you frame them in the moment. It's your eye contact when you say it. The way you let a silence sit afterward. The calm tone that suggests confidence without trying. These are micro-signals, and women are wired to detect them. A powerful phrase said with weak energy gets forgotten. A simple phrase said with grounded energy gets burned into memory. Your words are only 30% of the seduction. Your state, your delivery, your silence, that's the other 70%. Now let's talk about silence, the most underrated tool of verbal seduction. When you say something that lands, don't rush to fill the silence. Let it breathe. Let her process. Most guys say something deep, then immediately ruin it by adding more, trying to explain, trying to be clever. Don't. Let the silence speak for you. That pause, that space, is what makes the moment heavy. It's what makes her feel. And the more she feels, the more she remembers. That's how you turn words into emotional anchors. We'll go even deeper in the next part, where I'll show you how to use storytelling, emotional resonance, and timing to craft phrases that don't just impress her, they haunt her in the best way possible. And once you learn how to say things that hook her emotional attention, you'll never need to chase again. She'll do the thinking. She'll do the replaying. She'll do the chasing. Here's what most men never realize. Women remember moments, not just words. They remember the emotional context in which something was said. So, if you want her to think about you long after the conversation ends, you don't just need clever phrases. You need to create experiences through your words. That's why the next principle is so powerful. Emotional contrast paired with symbolic language. Symbolic language means you're not just speaking literally, you're speaking in images, in metaphors, in emotional symbols. When you say something that connects to a deeper archetype or triggers an unconscious emotion, it hits differently. For example, instead of saying, "I think we connect," you might say, "It feels like our energies recognize each other before we even speak." That's symbolic. That creates a mood. That activates her imagination. And when you speak in a way that draws on her imagination, her subconscious will replay it. Not because she's trying to remember, but because the mind can't forget what it hasn't fully understood. Think about it. If she understands everything you're saying immediately, there's no mystery. But if you say something that lingers, something that she feels but can't fully define, it creates a sense of emotional tension. And tension is what makes something addictive. That's why vague, emotionally charged phrases are often more powerful than clear ones. Strauss called this the art of verbal pattern interrupts. You say something that breaks the script, that pulls her out of autopilot. It's unexpected, a little confusing, but emotionally resonant. That's the perfect cocktail for obsession. Let me give you another example. Let's say you're ending a conversation and you drop this line. You feel like one of those people I was supposed to meet much earlier, and yet somehow now is the exact right time. Boom. That sentence does so much. It suggests fate, it triggers nostalgia, it makes her feel unique, and it leaves her with a question. Why now? That's the kind of thought that lives rent-free in her mind. And the beauty is, you didn't directly compliment her. You created a story where she's the unspoken main character. Let's add another layer now. Emotional pacing. Just like in music or cinema, the rhythm of your conversation matters. A seductive conversation isn't just about being smooth. It's about taking her through emotional highs and lows. You slow down when the moment feels intimate. You speed up when the energy is playful. You pause when you want the weight of your words to sink in. That rhythm makes your presence emotionally addictive. And every phrase you say in alignment with that rhythm becomes more powerful. Now let's bring in a principle from Erich von Markovik, also known as mystery, one of the most legendary seduction theorists. He talks about DHV, or demonstrating higher value, not by bragging, but by embedding stories in casual conversation. And when you blend that with the emotional pacing we just talked about, you get phrases that not only show your value, but that also create emotional loops. Here's how you do it. Let's say she asks you something basic, like, "What kind of people do you usually vibe with?" Most men would give a boring answer, but you embed a story. You say something like, "I've always connected more with people who carry a little chaos in their energy. Not the destructive kind, but the type that tells a story. The ones who feel like they've lived, not just existed." That's not just an answer, that's an emotional invitation. You're giving her a blueprint for who you're drawn to, and if she resonates, she'll want to fit that story. That's how you plant obsession without even mentioning attraction. Here's the pattern. You don't describe her, you describe the kind of energy you're drawn to. And if she wants to be that for you, she'll start molding herself to fit your narrative. That's the power of verbal suggestion. It's the same reason advertisers don't sell a product, and they sell the feeling of using the product. You're not selling yourself to her, you're selling the feeling of being around you. And the more unique that feeling is, the more she will crave it, especially when you're not around. Let's zoom in even deeper. Another concept that makes your words unforgettable is emotional mirroring. You say things that subtly reflect her emotional state back to her, but through your words, you amplify it. If she's feeling uncertain, you speak about unpredictability. If she's feeling playful, you tease lightly. If she's quiet, you lower your tone and slow your pace. The idea is not to imitate her. The idea is to lead her deeper into her own emotions using your presence as the mirror. Women fall in love in the moments when they feel seen without being judged. And the right words, delivered at the right emotional frequency, do exactly that. Let's take an example that demonstrates this idea. If she's talking about her dreams or fears, and you say something like, "It's rare to hear someone speak from that place, the place where there's no armor, just truth." I like that. You're not just reacting, you're validating the deeper layer of her experience. That line will haunt her because most men respond to facts. You're responding to feelings, and feelings are what she will remember. In the next section, we'll break down the difference between emotional suggestion and direct communication, and I'll show you how to make every word feel like a private whisper to her subconscious. A whisper that keeps echoing long after you've gone silent. Let's shift gears now. Because once you've mastered subtle suggestion, symbolic language, and emotional pacing, you unlock a new level of power, the ability to implant emotional triggers. And I don't mean manipulation, I mean creating psychological fingerprints, emotional impressions that only you leave behind. This is where your words become like scent memory. They can hit her out of nowhere, when she's alone in bed, driving home, scrolling through her phone, and suddenly, she feels you. She doesn't just recall your face or your voice, she remembers the way you made her feel. And that's where real seduction lives. So how do you do that? One of the most potent methods is emotional time distortion. You speak in a way that stretches or compresses time. You say something that makes a short interaction feel like something deep, something ancient, something familiar. You create a sense that something happened between the two of you, even if it didn't, not objectively. But subjectively, emotionally, it felt like it did. That's what matters. Here's a phrase that uses time distortion. "It's strange. I feel like I've known your energy longer than I've known your name." That sentence makes the moment feel timeless. It bends reality just a little, and her mind starts to play along. Because that's what the feminine psyche does. It seeks meaning, symbolism, story. And now she's wondering, why do I feel so drawn to him? You didn't ask for her attention. You just created a space where it wants to stay. Now imagine combining that with microcalibration. This is something few men understand. Microcalibration is about knowing when to intensify and when to back off, not just with body language, but with your verbal rhythm. You escalate the emotional weight of your words just slightly, then pull back, leaving her hanging, like a song that never resolves its final chord. You leave something incomplete, and her subconscious aches to complete it. That ache is what keeps her thinking. That ache is what makes her chase. Want a concrete example? Let's say you've shared a moment of intimacy, not sexual, but emotional. Eye contact, a laugh, a shared silence. And then you say, slowly, "If I said what I'm really thinking right now, I think it would change everything between us." And then, silence. You don't say what you're thinking. You just look at her and change the topic. That line is a psychological cliffhanger. You just turned her emotional curiosity into obsession. She'll replay that moment again and again, wondering what you meant, why you held back, and what might have happened if you'd said more. This is what seductive communication truly is. Not about impressing, but about provoking curiosity, evoking emotions, and then letting go. Because here's a truth backed by psychological research. The human brain remembers unfinished experiences more intensely than completed ones. It's called the zygarnic effect. If you leave something open, a question, an emotion, a compliment that feels half-finished, her mind won't rest until it fills the gap. And in filling that gap, she mentally returns to you again and again. Let's add another layer: contrast framing. This is where you set up your words with opposites. It heightens impact. For example, most people are easy to read. You feel like a book in a language I've never learned but somehow understand anyway. Boom. That's poetic, but grounded. It says, you're different. You're not like the others. You confuse me in a way I enjoy. Again, you're not directly complimenting. You're evoking identity. You're shaping how she sees herself through your eyes. And that's the most powerful seduction there is. Now let's not forget the value of emotional delayed gratification. This is where you start a story or a thought and finish it later. You create narrative loops. Here's how that sounds. Early in the conversation, you might say, "Remind me to tell you something about the way people connect. I've got a theory that'll either make you smile or mess with your head a little." And then you change the subject. You don't return to it immediately. She's now waiting, anticipating. You've planted an emotional breadcrumb trail. And when you do finally share it, hours later, days later, the emotional payoff is stronger because the tension had time to build. Let me give you a deeper phrase you might use to deliver that payoff. My theory is, the people we think we meet by accident are actually answering some silent question we haven't been able to ask out loud yet. She'll pause. Her body might tense for a second. Her breath will shift, because that phrase doesn't just sound nice, it feels like something she's always wanted to believe. You just gave her an emotionally satisfying answer to an unspoken question. That's psychological intimacy. That's verbal seduction. All of this points back to one core idea. Women are drawn to emotional leadership. Not just physical dominance or status, but the ability to lead them through emotions they crave but don't know how to access on their own. If you can make her feel something she can't explain, if you can guide her into mystery and bring her back feeling seen, she won't just think about you. She'll need to experience you again. And that's the truth most men will never understand. It's not about having the perfect looks, the perfect body, or the flashiest lifestyle. It's about mastering the emotional conversation underneath the words. It's about making her feel something that no one else dares to awaken. When you speak with intention, when your words carry weight, mystery, and emotional rhythm, you become more than just a man she met. You become an imprint on her memory. You don't need 100 clever lines. You need your voice, calibrated with awareness. You need to know when to lean in, and when to let the silence do the seduction, when to challenge her frame, and when to reflect her depth. And when you do it right, she'll start thinking about you, not just in the moment, not just that night, but at random hours, in quiet moments, in flashes of memory she can't quite shake. That's the kind of attraction that lives beneath the surface. That's the kind that doesn't fade. Now listen, if you made it this far, it means something in this resonated with you. Maybe you've been the guy who tried too hard, or maybe you've said things that didn't land. But now you understand. The real seduction is subtle, psychological, and emotional. And if this gave you clarity, if it gave you tools you've never heard before, then share it. Comment below and tell me, which of these phrases or strategies spoke to you the most? Have you ever seen a woman respond differently when you said something that made her pause and feel? This channel exists to give men like you an unfair advantage, based not on tricks, but on real psychological mastery. And if you want more content like this, tools, insights, seduction frameworks that actually work, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Because trust me, this is just the beginning. And the more men we bring into this mindset, grounded, intentional, emotionally intelligent, the more we elevate the entire game. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And remember, say it right, and she won't stop thinking about you.